What's something you did that reduced your quality of life so much that you wish you had never done it? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. Let the dude I thought was my best friend back into my life because I felt bad for him. A year later, he eliminated my son and fiance in a jealous rage. Edit. I appreciate everyone's kind words. I am in an okay place mentally. This time of year is just particularly tough. Story 2. I was jumping on our kids' trampoline and I hurt my back, and I've suffered sciatica pain all these years since. My life would be so much better if I had not thought jumping on a trampoline would be good exercise. Answer. Yep. When I was 23, I slipped on the carpeted stairs and broke my tailbone banging down the last 3 steps. I was wearing 2 long pajama pants and, for literally no reason, decided I must know how fast I could make it down the stairs. A year of needing a donut cushion to sit down, followed by now 7 years of sciatica bullshit. Bad herniated lumbar disc as a result of the tailbone impact, weakening the disc walls in my lower back. Now I can't sit in a chair for more than 20 minutes, but I also can't stand the stationary for more than 20 minutes. I also can't lay on my back or left side. If it's flaring up badly, I also can't drink adult beverage because of the acetaminophen in the painkillers. Story 3. Stayed in a long-term relationship with someone struggling with addiction and alcoholism because I saw the addictions as a type of mental illness, and what sort of partner would I be if I abandoned him when he was sick? Then I had my first serious illness since we had met and missed a lot of work. Had to stay home for almost a month, and he was unemployed at this time. He started to get very obviously irritated with me for being home all day so he didn't have any alone time, for making him feel the pressure of returning to work because I wasn't working, so I wasn't bringing in any income. I suddenly had this moment of clarity where I realized he was the only one allowed to be sick in our dynamic. And while I had been playing nurse for years, he really didn't like when I got to be sick as if it was a choice, especially when it interfered with his routine. I left him a few months later when my health improved. He passed away about a year later as his health deteriorated rapidly after I stopped caring for him. I definitely feel some guilt in the matter, even though I know I can blame myself for the poor choices of an adult man who was almost in his 50s. Answer. I relate to this one so much. I got married and I knew my partner had an eating disorder, but thought my part in the relationship was to be a support. It took me 6 years to have a big moment where I needed to be supported when I broke my ankle. The realization of how out of balance our relationship was happened all of a sudden when I was told if having a broken bone is bad, just imagine what I deal with every single day. We got divorced in year 7, and it's still hard for me to distinguish between what it means for me to have needs and boundaries, because anything besides codependency just feels selfish. But we're growing one day at a time. Story 4. Bulimia for 15 years since I was a teen. All because my mom put me through Weight Watchers as a kid because I was a little chubby. Never felt thin enough. Ruined my teeth and digestive health. 10/10 and do not recommend. Story 5. Going to prison at 19 for selling plant substance. In the end, it worked out. I've since graduated college and have a nice engineering job and great life. It was a rough patch in my life for sure. Freezing stuck in a prison cell in Joliet for 77 days. Went weeks without showers or seeing sunlight. Then shipped off to boot camp for 4.5 months to be further denigrated. In the end, it caused me to grow up and prioritize what I want in life. Worked and paid my way through a 2-year community college, followed with a MIS degree at a four-warrior university. Life hasn't been perfect, but I always have perspective on a bad day, in that I've had it much worse. Story 6. Probably getting flamed for it, but smoking plant substance young. It neutered me since quitting him twice as productive and sharp. I'm sure it is okay for some, but someone has to say it isn't always peachy. Answer. Exactly right. My friend's sister has actually had almost allergic-like reactions to being around that type of smoke, so I had to make sure to not use around her for her safety. Although I use it regularly for ticks, and it has been a godsend for me, it gave me my body back. But yeah, it just goes to show it can have wildly different effects depending on why you smoke. Though I'm trying to majorly cut back on smoking, daily smoking has just been hard for my lungs. Edibles are a much better alternative for long-term usage emo. Story 7. Staying in an unhealthy relationship. Not prioritizing moving out of my abusive parents' house. Taking advice from people who had never faced the issues I was having or have any professional experience handling it. Taking on student loans. Story 8. I left Walmart after 15 years to be a store manager at Starbucks. Worst mistake of my life. I remember nights I was there at 10 after a closer called off just to have an opener call out and knowing I'd have to wake up in 4 hours and work another shift and hope the same thing didn't happen again. Just awful. And the stories I'd hear interviewing people, I had no idea how bad fast food was. People from other companies wanted to work at Starbucks because those places were even worse. Answer: I work in corporate for private security. I spent several years as a site supervisor dealing with that exact same shoot. I had 4 posts under my watch with people calling off at all of them. Places were left dark because some nights I was the only person working and I physically can't be in 2 places at once. It was during COVID as well. Someone gets a positive test, can't work for 2 weeks. Sudden 40-hour opening. Nearly every daycare in multiple counties here closed permanently, so people had to quit working, period, to be home with their kids. For real, it makes you look down on people. Don't take jobs you have no intention of being at. I'm a hiring manager today, and a lot from that era stuck with me. 1. Why do people get jobs only to call off constantly? Answer is normally that they're made to by either a benefits agency or a probation officer judge. Above all, it's that as a store manager type role, you're generally trying to get work out of people who have zero incentive to provide it. There is not a single person out there living on 12 an hour. Nobody taking those jobs actually needs them. People have their reasons, but at the end of the day, they do not give a flying Wallenda if they show up or get fired or anything. Story 9. Succumb to my food addiction again. After 2 years of extreme dieting and exercise, I lost a lot of weight and went down to the absolute best shape of my life and felt very good about myself. Once I got down to an ideal weight, I didn't know what to do with myself anymore. I didn't know how to maintain it. I started eating horribly again and am now, just over a year later, at the heaviest point in my entire life. I binge eat to the extreme and I'm pretty powerless to stop it. It affects pretty much every aspect of my life to some degree, and it's a very depressing feeling. Story 10. Not choosing a second cesarean after the first emergency one. During the birth of my second child, my levator ani, pelvic floor muscle, ruptured, making it no longer connected to wherever it should be attached to. I did not even know this was a major risk with vaginal births after a cesarean, and quite frankly, did not know that that could happen at all. Now I might not be able to jump, jog, run, or walk fast in my life ever again without my organs quite literally falling out of me. This not only nuked all of my volleyball activities, which was my primary hobby and I played 4th league in Germany, but it also left me with an extremely weak bladder. Talk about quality of life. And the real kicker, there simply is no way of attaching the muscle back to where it belongs. This is the current state of research and medical procedure, so I can really say bye to any form of active lifestyle. Story 11. Fall for the romanticized idea of overworking, overachieving, and ignoring my health-related red flags as a sign of virtue and strength. I felt so proud about not getting enough sleep or food, not letting illnesses stop me, and working my jerk off. At the end, I never got actually recognized for any of it and completely blew my health at only 24. Now I can't do half of what I could do before and lost so much time of my prime years trying too hard instead of being a happier person. Story 12. Took a promotion. I was working in a job that I really enjoyed, but was offered a promotion that switched departments into an area I've never worked before. I didn't really need the extra money, but thought it unwise to turn it down, and the company really needed help in the new role. I sucked at the job and dislike it. Quit the company after about a year because they had hired someone to fill my old role already, and I had nothing else I could do with them. Now I'm doing multiple jobs that I dislike and feel totally trapped. Story 13. Moving to Manhattan in my 20s, almost 50 of my income went to rent out a horrible shoebox studio apartment without any natural light. I couldn't afford to go out and enjoy being young, let alone save for a down payment on a house, and that's not even getting into what it did to my mental health. At least I got out of there in my 30s. Story 14. Aggressively unlearned all my dad had taught me about fixing cars and machines. He was a complete nightmare to work with, but I missed out on a chance for an imperfect but real bonding activity with him, and now I need to call a service station if the cup holder is rattling. Story 15. Attempted tragic end through car accident. Did not get result I was looking for at the time. No worries, I'm all good now. Therapy, meds, etc. Just ended up with a bunch of fudge-up bones. Enough metal holding me together to qualify as a runner, up for the bionic man, missing teeth, permanent jaw pain, a limp, and a little bit of brain damage causing periodic absent seizures. Uten would not recommend. Story 16. Being a waitress for 20 years. It's extremely hard on your body, but also what you can do afterwards. I have 2 kids now, and I'm lucky to have a husband who can provide. But if I had to go back to work to support us, our life would not be the same. The hours, the money, the mentally taxing management, co-workers, customers. It's just not a healthy environment, guilt tripping and pettiness going on. So that I have my weekends and holidays back, I did my time. Story 17. I became a recluse for a couple years when COVID quarantine started. I started drinking beer frequently, eating unhealthy food, got depressed, etc. I was able to turn things around, thankfully. It required a huge effort on my part. And now that I look back at those times, I ask myself, how on earth was I able to endure that much self-inflicted loneliness and self-loathing? Story 18. Not so much as what I did as what was done to me. The combo of age, AI, and COVID eliminate my graphic design business. And now instead of WFH making my own hours and really decent money, I'm working in a call center hell of extremely long, stressful hours with no work-life balance or creativity. It feels like dying. That and moving out of my hometown to a different state and allowing my mother to dictate where. I'm living so far beyond my means that I'm blowing through my savings at an alarming rate. Story 19. This will sound glib, but I'm going to say it. Moving to a city in Texas. A better way of saying it, no matter the promotion or the amount of money, never move somewhere where the general and sum total ideological or political belief system does not align in any way with your own. Story 20. Got married to someone who was in love with the idea, but not in love with me. The quality of life was reduced so much after 11 years that life almost ended. I am okay now, I guess. Was able to finalize a divorce and escape. Just don't see a path to recovery. Too much was sacrificed to restore myself. Story 21. Getting fat. As someone with ADHD who already struggled to feel comfortable sitting, having extra weight on my legs made it even harder to sit. I've lost 55 body so far, more to go, but I feel so much more comfortable now. I also have far less nerve pain. It's easier to exercise, which helps reduce pain, and sleep better. You never realize just how much being overweight decreases your quality of life. Story 22. Had body issues most of my life. Bulimia for the better part of a decade. Now I have holes in most of my teeth, afraid to go to the dentist because I know I'm losing most of them. Can't feel any pain though, just one ugly jerk smile that constantly triggers my body image issues. Also, abusing laxatives permanently ruins your ability to use the bathroom normally. Got constant gut pain and severe IBS to the point that I can't leave my home during flare-ups. Don't do bulimia, kids. Story 23. Let my grandmother dictate my college major because of a vague promise to help with college. I wanted to be a veterinarian my entire life. Still do, but was railroaded into engineering because it makes more money. Yeah, I make good money. My career is in a good place, but I've rarely felt job satisfaction. I'm usually bored, and I still to this day want to be a goddamn vet. And the kicker, her help was to help me move into my first dorm. I paid everything on my own through loans, grants, scholarships, and eventually internship money. So I paid a lot of money to not live my dream. Laud. Story 24. Had intimacy just to get virginity out of the way. Ended up getting her pregnant, and she was and still is a bipolar, narcissist, emotionally abusive person. Yes, you can get someone pregnant on the first time. Honorable mention to marrying the first reasonable girl who loved me. I had looked for decades and had done so much to fix myself that I was just exhausted from it all and married the first good enough instead of waiting for someone that was great. Story 25. Moved in with a friend and her new work colleague friends in a completely new city. Worst thing I ever did. Moved out into a new flat with complete strangers using spare room and had the best couple of years of my life. Story 26. Slept less to keep up school and work. At one point, I was sleeping around 3 hours a night and falling all asleep at the wheel regularly. It's been 10 years and I still have problems from this period of sleep deprivation. Kids, don't sacrifice your sleep. Turns out you need it. Story 27. I used to want to gain weight so I could finally have a butt. I have now been overweight almost the same amount of time I was a healthy weight. I'm trying to lose it for this time, and it's incredibly difficult. I got it though, but the health problems and low self-esteem made living that way a big challenge. Story 28. Radiation treatment for cancer, never again. Possibly saved me from metastatic disease. And I mean possibly. The side effects are totally made light of. Oh, XYZ only happens to 3 of the people. Blah, blah, blah. I am permanently shrink-wrapped in my body, like being wrapped in a blood pressure cuff I can't take off. I am at risk for future cancers from the radiation, including more breast cancer, skin cancer, lung cancer, and thyroid cancer. My lung is scarred and I wheeze. Everything in the rad zone has shrunk, muscle and tissue. I deal with untreatable pains that range from aching, stinging, burning, pinching, electrical zaps, and internal itching. Yes, internal. And I already look like a walking Picasso painting from the disfigurement. But I can still possibly get lymphedema at any time down the road from my lymph nodes being radiated. My shoulder and range of motion is FED too. All cancer treatments suck. They all have major life-altering risks, and frankly, it's like, die now, die later, still dying. Am I bitter? Abso-effing-lutely. What's the point of it all if your quality of life is shoot? Story 29. Honestly, vaping. So far, I have no adverse health effects, but trying to quit has been horrendous. And I'm sure later on I'll show some signs of vaping or have some sort of issue from it. Please don't start. Story 30. Went hiking in Bear Canyon in Tucson, fell and wrecked my knee. Before that, I ran 6 to 7 miles every day. After that, I could no longer run. I've missed running every single day since. Nothing replaces it. Wish I'd never gone on that stupid, idiotic hike. Story 31. Didn't eat breakfast for all of high school. I thought I needed to lose weight because, of course, I did. I was a teenage girl in the early 2000s, so I just skipped it and smoked cigarettes to stave off hunger pangs. I eat breakfast now, and I quit smoking 6 years ago. To the day, actually. But my metabolism is fudge, and moderate cardio leaves me huffing and puffing like I just summited Everest. Eat breakfast and don't smoke, kids. Story 32. I ignored that voice in my head telling me to distance myself from my family S-up. Was a teenager when I started thinking about it, and I ignored it, and as I grew older, suppressed it. I thought it was just me being dramatic and reacting in an emotional way, like my family would say. 18 years later, I finally went no contact and have spent half my time feeling so free and light and happy, and the other half grieving for the time lost denying that voice. When it comes to our individual survival, we gotta trust our instincts and intuition. Every darn time. Story 33. I have two. Spent 20 years in a relationship with an entitled girl. The one great thing to come of it is my daughter, and honestly, I would keep this one just to keep my daughter, whom I have full custody of. The second was the relationship right after with the psycho. She faked my signature on her child's birth certificate and lied about cheating, and now I am fighting the state over child support for a child I know isn't mine, but the DNA test I was able to get is inadmissible. Story 34. Had the implant on contraceptive implant. Once I had it removed, that's when my issues started. I now have hidradenitis suppurativa. It's very debilitating and life-changing, not in a good way. I've had this now for 20 years. No cure, and I can't find the right balance of treatment that suits my body. Currently waiting for surgery to try and improve it. Impacts every aspect of my life. Story 35. I wish I never smoked plant substance or drank adult beverage. I spent too many years abusing them and neglecting myself. I'm so grateful for my sobriety now and have no desire whatsoever to revisit any of it. Story 36. Get married, biggest regret ever. But it is hard to say that at the same time because I have my kids and I wouldn't wish them away for anything. Love them so much, but the marriage and husband were awful and he was abusive. Story 37. I sadly stayed close to parents that had abused me as a kid and were awful to me as an adult. They were my parents and I loved them. One day while taking a shower at about age 45, I looked in the mirror to comb my hair and noticed some small scars on my back and near my ribs. Then I remembered it was from being hit with a belt when my religiously fundamental parents were angry. I spent my life being really hard on myself and finally decided to cut my parents out of my life. It was hard, but the right decision. Story 38. Graduating college. I pissed away the best years of my life, working a full-time job and going to school only to get a degree that is borderline useless. Computer science should not be a 4-year degree. It should be a trade skill. All of my classmates ended up working at the same place after college due to the housing market disaster in '07. I had to take a $10,000 a year pay decrease to start my career. I was making far more doing the job that I worked to put myself through school. I'm doing pretty well now, but it is doing something I could have learned in a year on the job. Fudge the lies and bullshit. Public schools need to stop indoctrinating kids into believing the college is a good idea before the kids even know what the fudge they want to do with their lives. It is state-sponsored debt slavery. Story 39. Accepted a big promotion. It required moving 1,000 miles away from my family and close circle of longtime friends. Now 5 years later, am rolling in cash but miserable. I've tried to find work back at home, but no luck so far. Story 40. Went nomadic as a full-time RVer. It was easy to sell off everything and drive away, but when the RV got totaled, I found myself homeless, and it took years to get back to a normal way of life with my meager funds. Story 41. Increased weight on the leg press too quick. Now, I've had some sort of groin hip injury for the past 4 years, and no one can figure out what I injured, and now I can't walk long distances. I get pain when sitting too long, can't lay on that side. It sucks. Story 42. Trusted the wrong friends. Fell for the emotionally manipulative girls and spent my time thinking too much about narcissistic people who never felt guilty for their actions. Realized after a long time that they never do. Story 43. For people who want to stop smoking, get varenicline, aka Champix. 2 weeks on the tablets and you wake up one day and say, I don't want to smoke anymore. It eliminates the cravings. It's so easy to stop. Then you realize that all the other stuff like, oh, I need it for anxiety, I need it with a coffee, is just bullshit. That is just your physical addiction turning into language in your brain. Story 44. Got married. Now I love my husband and all, but just one fudge day of my life, I'd like how I leave a room to be how I find it again when I come back an hour later. Not every cleared surface needs something dumped on it. Story 45. Took Prilosec, omeprazole, for acid reflux rather than change my diet. I had osteoporosis at 35 years old from this horrible substances. My bones were like dissolving rubber. Prilosec, even taken here and there, stops your body from absorbing calcium. It took years of heavy workouts to get my bone strength back, but my ankle will never be the same after it's shattered into a zillion pieces. Non-weight bearing for over 3 months and lost my income. It was horrible. Rest of my life, I have an ankle full of metal and arthritis. Your doc can give you a list of foods to avoid if you have acid reflux. Eat them sporadically and take Tums for breakthrough heartburn. Story 46. Moved my dad in with me. He was an abusive, controlling father whom I moved 300 miles away from the day I turned 18. Then at 45, I moved him in with my family because he was in end-stage COPD. He lived with us for 7 years, passed away from lung cancer. Moving him in with us brought up all of the abuse issues he'd pushed aside for years. I ended up in therapy for complex PTSD. Moving him in with me caused me extreme anxiety. Now that he's gone, I've been able to work through all of it, but that was a chapter I never should have started. I mean, I needed to deal with my child abuse issues, but without him there, constantly triggering me. Story 47. Getting out of the Air Force. It was the worst decision I made in my life. I've struggled financially ever since. I make over $120K a year and live paycheck to paycheck in CA. I had to deal with the post-911 economy. I was an aircraft mechanic. The industry was in shambles when I got out. I was a young father struggling to make it. I lived through the economy collapse of '08 and the housing market crash. I've never earned more money in my life, but still living paycheck to paycheck. I can't even make it to the next pay period without overdrafting or having to pull money out of my savings. Just this last Friday, I went to my brother-in-law's retirement from the Air Force we joined. At the same time, he was in boot camp with me. Now, he has a retirement, will probably get disability from them, has a GI Bill for school, plus now he can get a civilian job for extra income. He owns a house, multiple cars, has traveled the world. Meanwhile, I've barely left the state of California. So, yeah, worst decision of my life. I regret it every day. Story 48. I spent 30 years as a pillar of society in a very niche world. I got sick, stepped away, and less than a year later, no one even remembers me to see what happened. So much for being the industry standard. I see my influence all over the place now, but people don't recognize me anymore. I wish I hadn't partied too hard my energy for decades. I made the choice to be nonprofit, but it didn't improve my life at all. Story 49. I didn't go to the dentist for a few years in my 20s. No one was making me anymore, and it was just a pain to schedule things. I thought I was doing all right. Turns out I wasn't. Had to deal with a lot of issues connected to that poor choice. Still dealing with them a little bit because I have to be vigilant, and my dental checkups are a little more expensive because of it. Kids and young adults don't skip the dental appointments. Trust me. Story 50. You're a nom-nom. I grew up in an upper middle class background and ended up choosing a career that I thought was going to be okay enough and at least flexible enough to allow me to focus on motherhood. But after having 2 kids and current advancements in AI, my workload is almost nothing, our finances have tanked, and I don't know how I'll recover unless I go back to school. I'm already enrolled to start this fall, but it'll be at least 4 years until I'm qualified, and nothing else related to my field is a viable option either, so I really don't have a choice. Am the oldest, but my brother and stepbrothers and all our cousins made better career choices and therefore have a much better quality of life, and am just the idiot who stepped off a cliff. If anything, it's like a mark of privilege. Like my parents were so unconcerned with money, they didn't even think to warn me I was making an unwise choice. They just wanted to support my dreams. I can't fault them for that, but I sure wish I could go back to younger me and tell her she'll dislike her career in a decade's time because the financial stress sucks out all the joy. Story 51. Went vegan from ages 17-22. Ended up turning into full-blown anorexia. Totally fudge up my bone mineral density since I was starving myself during a crucial stage of bone development. Normally, people achieve peak bone density during these years, so I pretty much just squashed my potential max BMD. I was 105 lbs when I graduated college. As a 5'8" man, was told later in life that my parents were contemplating force hospitalizing me during that time. Ended up figuring all that shoot out over the following 20 years. Now have a healthy relationship with food, and looking back, totally see that much of it was rooted in needing to establish control in my life when so many things felt in limbo. I do think that I took years off of my life during that time though. I've never really been able to put on much muscle mass. Realized in my early 40s that my testosterone is super low and am starting TRT to help with that. I'd bet a month's pay on my anorexic years contributing to it. Not looking forward to seeing what other weird health things pop up in the future that could probably be sourced back to this time period. Story 52. Bulimia for almost a decade. Ruined my body. Acid reflux. Will never feel comfortable in my own skin. My teeth are yellowed gum recession. I don't know how to eat now, which sounds insane. But I no longer can read Hunger Quests or when to stop eating. I've been recovered for 4 years, but it still messes with me. Story 53. Stayed in an abusive relationship for 6 years. I felt stuck and he refused to move out and threatened to take our daughter overseas, so I couldn't see a way out. I had the chance to leave when I was pregnant, but I didn't realize how bad he was until after our baby was born. Think, stuck in bedroom with a baby unless wanted for cleaning, cooking, and unconsenting sex. I should have just ran away with my baby. Luckily, we did get out, but he completely changed my soul, and I don't even know how to laugh out loud anymore. Story 54. Sports injuries. Both my shoulders are crippled. Right one was dislocated several times, repaired, and then I did some roids and ruined the repair. It actually feels okay now. Never dislocated the left, but all the cartilage in it is ruined now and needs to be replaced. It makes sleeping hard, and it's always in pain with reduced mobility. Just being in pain all the time takes a lot out of you, but also hinders my physical activity like climbing and golf. Basically is the bane of my existence these days. Story 55. Amen. I feel like this is a lesson that one will learn over and over again. I find myself doing this in different settings, with a different crowd, in a different mindset, always in a cycle of learning and relearning. Story 56. It took a long time for it to sink in that random people's thoughts or comments about me don't matter at all, unless they have some sort of influence over my job or family or something. There are always going to be people who laugh at someone or talk, shoot about anything at all, no matter what a person does. A person graduates law school, and there are people who dislike lawyers and talk shoot. A person drops out of law school, and there are people who are going to talk shoot. A person does anything at all, there are going to be people making fun of them and talking shoot. None of it matters. Story 57. It's an awful cycle to be in. I was like this in my younger years. It took moving abroad and starting over to really find my self-confidence and have healthy relationships with other people. A lot of the time, I really wanted people to like me who didn't care. People will take advantage of you though, and it happened all the time. I did many things I regret trying to make people happy or impress them. I wish I could take it back. In the end, all that led to was them getting rid of me when I was no longer useful. I was just a last resort drinking buddy for most. Somebody so they wouldn't have to go out alone because they were insecure. The day it hit me was sending a text out of boredom to somebody I thought was a friend, asking if they want to go get lunch and hang out. The text returned was, "Who is this?" They had not got a new number. They had deleted my number. They called to find out who it is and made some random excuse about why my number was deleted, but I told them to forget it and to not call again. After that, I had a whole realization and removed a lot of people from my life. Story 58. Although not to that level, I can relate. I've had a mentally ill friend who I was trying to help almost completely ruin my mental health and my marriage. I spent thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours to make them happy, And I had to realize they will never be happy, especially if they continue to refuse mental health help. Don't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Story 59. I feel like I've done this for so long and gotten so comfortable with not having a social life that I no longer know how to make and maintain genuine relationships outside of my partner. It's a rough cycle. Story 60. Work basically did this to me. 5 days a week, 10 hour shifts managing a high-volume restaurant. It's physically and mentally draining to the point where my days off are basically just me catching up on sleep and staying away from people because I deal with them so many hours a week, I'm just sick of going out. I haven't seen my best friend in person in probably 4 years. We still talk every day, but we're both in the exact same situation. Upper management, long shifts, permanently exhausted, but the pay is nice, I guess. Story 61. Spent years being the girl the guy was trying to impress. I told him over and over again that I wasn't interested in him as anything more than friends, and I thought we were best friends. We had been through a lot, and I loved him like a brother. He followed me to 3 states uninvited and blamed me for all his failed romantic decisions, emotionally blackmailed me into feeling guilty for tiny things, and left me in tears because when I was going through some really hard times, my best friend basically told me I was a horrible person for not agreeing with a comment he made on social media. Unfortunately, we're in the same friend group and have been for the last 20 years, so there's no avoiding him, even though we finally live in different states as we all do things online together. I no longer excuse all the creepy, toxic, self-important, clueless, and inconsiderate things he does, and I no longer feel responsible for his poor choices. I feel grief for the friendship I thought I had and lost, but looking back with a clear head, I realize I should have cut him out of my life the first time he got clingy. Story 62. I fortunately got this impulse out of my system before I left school. I completely fell for someone who had zero interest in me. To this day, I can figure out why I kept trying. Kept trying to be a guy she'd like, to be into the same interest she was. Kept trying to invite her to stuff she probably had no interest in. It was dumb. If someone doesn't like you immediately, put even an ounce of further effort in at your own peril. 99% of the time you are wasting your time. Not only that, but there's also a good chance it will have the opposite effect and repel them. I've had numerous good relationships since then. In each case, the person expressed interest in me very quickly. There is no other way for it to happen, IMO. Story 63. Yep, when I was 23, I slipped on the carpeted stairs and broke my tailbone banging down the last 3 steps. I was wearing 2 long pajama pants and, for literally no reason, decided I must know how fast I could make it down the stairs. A year of needing a donut cushion to sit down, followed by now 7 years of sciatica bullshit, bad herniated lumbar disc as a result of the tailbone impact weakening the disc walls in my lower back. Now I can't sit in a chair for more than 20 minutes, but I also can't stand stationary for more than 20 minutes. I also can't lay on my back or left side. If it's flaring up badly, I also can't drink adult beverage because of the acetaminophen in the painkillers. Answer. When I was 10, I wore pajamas that were too long. I was born quite premature and so was always on the small side for my age growing up and was rushing downstairs to tell my mom something. And I tripped on my pajama bottoms and flew headfirst into a radiator. Next thing I knew, blood was pouring out of my mouth and I was convinced I had knocked all of my already adult teeth out. Because there was so much blood, we couldn't tell the extent of the damage. Luckily, my teeth were mostly fine, save for a couple of chips, but the inside of my mouth was torn up like crazy, and my mouth swelled to the point that I could only eat soup via a syringe. It looked like I had done the Kylie Jenner lip challenge. It could have been so much worse, though. Moral of the story, wear clothes that fit you and don't run downstairs. Story 64. I work in the ER, and I see on average at least 1 back pain patient per shift. But easily it's 3 to 4 in a 10-hour shift. Some of these people have utterly destroyed their spines, sometimes by little more than bad genetics and jobs that force them to sacrifice their bodies for their income. Once it's done. Your options for repair are limited at best, and in the worst cases, the procedures just make it worse. 1 surgery can turn into 3. The trend now for literally all medical practice is to shift away from opiate use. The liability is seen as too great. So these patients just bounce from provider to provider in each specialty and get repeat prescriptions for muscle relaxants and tramadol like it's going to do a fudge thing. You can get in line for your fusion or steroid injection, but results are mixed at best. The absolute brutal reality is once you destroy your back, you are essentially doomed to always be reminded of whatever decision it was that caused that injury. What if I hadn't gotten on that trampoline? What if I hadn't missed that last step and fell backwards? The cruelty is in how stable the condition can be. It's rarely life-threatening. You're just another one of the faceless millions who suffer from it. The general consensus from a med-legal standpoint is tough break, kid, stiff upper lip. Mind you, all of this is only have halfway decent insurance. If you're poor and don't have coverage and the funds to pay for treatment, you are S.O. fudge L. If you are young and healthy and your back doesn't hurt every day of your life, thank your fudge stars. Protect your back. Avoid poor lifting techniques. Honestly, if you ever are planning to interact with the ground in any way, if you're not doing so with your spine fully erect and straight, you're asking for it. Never mind adding that couch you think you can get up 3 flights, or that cement block you think you can easily toss in the dumpster. Strengthen your core, politely decline any foolishness that might injure you, stay well hydrated, and understand that there is a world of suffering and misery that nobody talks about, but exists all around you. It is hell on earth. Answer. Lot of evidence suggesting progressive overload in odd, non-perfect, or symmetrical loading, bending, etc. actually creates more resilience and injury prevention long-term. Life is not symmetrically loaded. If you walk around on eggshells, always worried about perfect form, you may avoid it for a while, but eventually will blow something out when you do a slightly awkward movement. Don't avoid every little thing. Lean into it. Find out the weakness and correct it smartly over time. Signed, a victim of bad L1 herniation, trampoline that caused immense pain. Did all the proper physio stuff with fudge all to show. Embraced what I spoke about above and am once again, 3 years post-injury, deadlifting in the 400s, competing in Oli, do anything and every physical thing my kids demand of me. Story 65. Man, I realized trampolines were not for me any longer when my kids asked me to jump with them one day, and I swear it felt like my internal reproductive organs were going to fall out of my body. Y'all have fun. Mama's going to retire from this sport with my dignity and uterus intact. Story 66. I'm going to be real with you. I'm not a doctor, but had it not been the trampoline, something else likely would have triggered it at some point. People herniate discs deadlifting, and people herniate their discs sneezing. You were probably prone to it, so I wouldn't beat yourself up. A trampoline isn't outside normal human range for what you should be able to tolerate. Story 67. Probably unwanted advice, but core exercise might help relieve it if you build it up, do it the right way, and keep at it. Took me 3 years, but I'm getting better with the Skadiaka. Physio made me overreach, but learning to feel how my body moves with yoga and Pilates helps me. Could be different for you though, but I hope you get there, one way or another. Story 68. I hurt my back climbing through a window this weekend, and I feel this so hard. My stupid dog jumped on the door and hit the deadbolt, so I was stuck outside without a phone. I'm too old to be climbing in windows, I guess. Story 69. I have had back issues for going on 20 years, sciatica, SI joint pain. My back spasmed so bad in October, I couldn't sit for more than a few minutes for almost 2 months. I was on a Reddit sub a month ago and saw someone recommend this guy's YouTube video. It works. I do it every day and my back pain is pretty much gone. Hope it helps someone else that sees this. Story 70. I relate to this one so much. I got married and I knew my partner had an eating disorder, but thought my part in the relationship was to be a support. It took me 6 years to have a big moment where I needed to be supported when I broke my ankle. The realization of how out of balance our relationship was happened all of a sudden when I was told if having a broken bone is bad, just imagine what I deal with every single day. We got divorced in year 7, and it's still hard for me to distinguish between what it means for me to have needs and boundaries. Because anything besides codependency just feels selfish. But we're growing one day at a time. Story 71. I was told at 16 by a therapist that I needed to learn to set boundaries. Cut to 10 years later when I finally listened, and I don't speak with a single person that I did back then. But not because I won't talk to them, they won't talk to me. I traded my morals to please others. To anyone who can't set boundaries or people pleases, and thinks the only one that'll get hurt by that pattern is you're dead wrong. You're not being nice. You're putting the burden of upholding a moral code and a relationship standard onto others because it's outside of your comfort zone, and that's selfish, not selfless. There will come a time where you fall in with someone who has no morals. You are attractive to them because you're a pushover, and they are attractive to you because they praise that pattern and you love praise. Pleasing this person will eventually come at the expense of everyone else around you. The path of least resistance rarely leads anywhere good. Story 72. This is not something you did, though. You had a disease that started because your mom made bad choices. Sorry, but hope your life is better now. Have you talked with your mom about the consequences of her actions? Story 73. I can relate, friend. Bulimic for maybe 10 years. I used to have beautiful teeth and a great smile. My teeth are totally fudge up and my digestive health sucks. Plus, who knows what other health issues I've exacerbated that will appear as I get older. Plus, lots of my life and potential partied too hard, being controlled by an eating disorder. Story 74. It's crazy. You sell plant substance in one place and get sent to jail. Meanwhile, I paid for my engineering degree with plant substance money, but in a legal state where I sold plant substance over the counter. Story 75. I feel this one too. It's like one day you just have this epiphany. Wow, this person doesn't give a fudge about me. So you stop calling because you're always the one checking in. You think, okay, they'll notice and call me, and a month goes by and crickets. Then 2 months, then you realize. Story 76. They say after 10 years of not smoking, your odds of health problems return to near normal. I am 10 years out as of this month. Started running the day I quit. At first, I couldn't go the length of a city block without having to stop and walk. Now I run hundreds of miles every year, and every time I am tempted by a cigarette, I just think about how much it would ruin my running. If anyone reading this is trying to quit, keep trying. It took me a bunch of attempts before I was able to get there. Story 77. Pack a day for years and years. Then I quit. Took me 3 times, but it stuck. Now I've even lost track of when it was I quit, but it was years ago. I can tell you cravings do go away. I can be around people smoking after a big meal now and not even consider having one myself. I say this not to brag, but to let anyone else who wants to quit know that it's possible. If you really want to, that's the trick. You can't be doing it just because people tell you it's bad. You have to want it. I actually purposely upped my level of smoking to the point where the thought of a cigarette made me want to hurl. Still, I consider it the greatest achievement of my life, even though I'd never say that to anyone. Story 78. They don't call it dope for no reason. After smoking plant substance for 14 years, I gave up, nearly 3 years clean, and realized plant substance made me lazy and unmotivated. The biggest shock was how much mental clarity I have now. Story 79. People say you don't get hungover from plant substance. That's such bullshit. I can barely keep track of a conversation if I got really stoned the night before. We'll search for words for the most basic common things. Not the best since I'm a fudge therapist Lowell, and better off without it. Story 80. My cousin smokes plant substance every day. He was struggling with mental health issues following the passing of his dad. Instead of seeking professional help like I did after my dad died a few short months before, he turned to plant substance, and now he doesn't leave the house, has no job, no friends, nothing. My auntie worries about him, but she enables him as she does nothing to stop this, so now he has no quality of life. He is wasting his life barely existing. Story 81. Exactly right. My friend's sister has actually had almost allergic-like reactions to being around that type of smoke, so I had to make sure to not use around her for her safety. Although I use it regularly for ticks, and it has been a godsend for me. It gave me my body back. But yeah, just goes to show it can have wildly different effects depending on why you smoke. Though I'm trying to majorly cut back on smoking. Daily smoking has just been hard for my lungs. Edibles are a much better alternative for long-term usage emo. Story 82. Buddy, I'm now in healthcare. I wouldn't say I worked a warehouse-type job, but I've broken down trucks, moving pallets, and throwing groceries on a shelf. I'm honestly considering going back to that, and I don't care about the pay cut. Just doing my job with a podcast in my ear and no patients or customers bothering me sounds like a dream right now. Can I ask why you didn't like your warehouse job? I'm not being mean, I just genuinely want to learn something. Story 83. I worked in warehouses for 8 years before getting promoted into the office. Better pay, climate-controlled, more respect, but I dislike it. I'd rather be in the warehouse than sitting at a desk for hours on end any day. Story 84. My daughter died last year, and it's amazing how quickly my best friends abandoned me because they were too uncomfortable to deal with my grief. It makes me feel incredibly stupid for giving 20 years of my life to these people. It has really made me question a lot of my relationships. Story 85. I went and had an almost 40-year career in a field I dislike, knowing how much I truly dislike my major. I had 2 friends switch to another major their freshman year, but I just had to stick it out. I always wonder how happier I would have been if I had a career I enjoyed. I lived for the weekends and vacations. I couldn't even look at 60 Minute or hear their opening music as it meant the weekend was over. Story 86. Yup, my innocent glass of wine at the end of the day would slowly turn into 2, then 3, then a bottle. Then it was tequila drinks instead. I just simply couldn't moderate it. 2 years adult beverage free on June Mars. Story 87. This one is so easy to fall into. You find yourself making excuses as to why it's not a real adult beverage problem, because it's just a little wine, just a treat, self-care really. I heard that in some European countries, children drink wine with dinner. How bad could it be? It's wine o'clock, am right? Except it's gradually making you dumber and sicker every day. Story 88. Yup, my innocent glass of wine at the end of the day would slowly turn into 2, then 3, then a bottle. Then it was tequila drinks instead. I just simply couldn't moderate it. 2 years adult beverage free on June 1. Answer. It'll be at 2 years on July 1st. I was downing straight liquor daily for about 6 years. At the very end, I couldn't go an hour without several hefty drinks, or it'd go in to throw me out of bed seizures. It's insidious. I'll also never forget the funny dichotomy of being pressured to drink my whole life, and then I end up like that, and the same people are pissed at me. I cut a lot of people out of my life who made that emotional switch at some arbitrary point. Suddenly, me drinking was a problem for them after literal years of being badgered at every social function. Y'all don't get to decide what my problems are. Even after all this time, being sober is odd at times, but I have zero urge to go back. I'll hear a song or do some little task, and my brain will go, hey, last time that happened, you were, oh yeah, congrats on escaping it. Wine is way more socially acceptable, so to me that's got to be even tougher to leave. I've known several people who I thought had actual problems with it, but everyone around them kept encouraging them. You deserve it, you work so hard, etc. Always glad to see someone make it out. Story 89. Jilted by fiancé. Turned to the bottle hard, as I've mentioned in some comments above. There was a serious part of me that was like, this is what you're supposed to do when your fiancé leaves you. You become a broken alcoholic and die of a broken heart. It's not the clearest set of thoughts I've ever had. Going on 2 years sober today. Story 90. Please keep sharing your story with those around you. I'm a critical care nurse and have cared for a couple younger people with very serious vape-induced lung injuries. I can't count how many people I've heard say it's safer than smoking. But it's not. Whether it's tobacco or THC, it really doesn't matter. These chemicals and oils that go in the cartridge seem to be dangerous for lots of people. I am so sorry you've gone through this, but sharing with others could help save them. Story 91. Just out of curiosity, did you vape disposables or did you use a mod? I'm not saying it's healthier by any means, but I don't feel most of the negative effects using my mod versus my sister's disposables that immediately make my lungs feel brittle. Story 92. I'm Scottish, so I have a bit of a temper, is one I got from my ex. First off, your grandma was Scottish. I don't think you're Scottish enough to be claiming that. And second off, you can blame your poor emotion regulation on a nationality. Story 93. I work in corporate for private security. I spent several years as a site supervisor dealing with that exact same shoot. I had 4 posts under my watch with people calling off at all of them. Places were left dark because some nights I was the only person working, and I physically can't be in 2 places at once. It was during COVID as well. Someone gets a positive test, can't work for 2 weeks, sudden 40-hour opening. Nearly every daycare in multiple counties here closed permanently, so people had to quit working, period, to be home with their kids. For real, it makes you look down on people. Don't take jobs you have no intention of being at. Am a hiring manager today, and a lot from that era stuck with me. 1. Why do people get jobs only to call off constantly? Answer is normally that they're made to by either a benefits agency or a probation officer judge. Above all, it's that as a store manager type role, you're generally trying to get work out of people who have zero incentive to provide it. There is not a single person out there living on 12 an hour. Nobody taking those jobs actually needs them. People have their reasons, but at the end of the day, they do not give a flying Wallenda if they show up or get fired or anything. Story 94. I think you can do it, hun. Consider talking it over with a therapist or dietitian, but you've shown you can make changes. You just didn't make the right change. You have to have a healthy process or you can't get healthy results. Extreme dieting just makes your body crave, and once the floodgates open, it's pretty darn hard to turn it around. Story 95. 30 years sober this month. I would be dead if I didn't admit myself to a treatment program. Gave up every friend I had at the time, except for one who supported me in my decision. Got myself together. Made a new life with people whose lives didn't revolve around booze. My friend who supported me is now dead, but I will always be grateful. I have a fantastic wife who gave me 2 fantastic children. They have a dad who doesn't drink and smoke and is there for them. Imagine where I'd be now if I never even started drinking. Story 96. I'm so sorry this happened to you. People really vilify choosing a C-section as if it's the easy way out. It's not. Your doctors should have thoroughly explained the risks. I can speak from experience the second C-section is easier to recover from. I hope you find some relief and can recover your active lifestyle. Story 97. Every time I stop in a shelter, I leave crying. It is unnecessary for animals to be in these situations. It's due to stupid people not fixing their animals or abusing them as puppy mills. It makes me dislike these people. Don't give animals as gifts. It should be considered a lifetime commitment. Story 98. I volunteered at a shelter for 10 years and stopped when I became pregnant with my first child. I had all good intentions of returning, but I found I really didn't miss dealing with stupid people with zero personal responsibility and horrible decision-making skills. I still help, but in other, more indirect ways. 75 of people who have pets do not deserve them. Story 99. Please, could you expand on this? I agree, but I'd like to know the exact reasons. In my country, we've had lots of military scandals where people have died and it's been covered up. But I know there are lots of others. Answer. In the U.S. specifically, it's attractive because of the guaranteed housing, food, income, free college, and free health insurance, as well as the chance to travel, which is prohibitively expensive for most of the people attracted to the military. After a while, you realize the pay is awful, the food is worse, the housing is falling apart and full of mold, and the health care is suboptimal. There's also the moral dilemma of furthering American imperialism. Eliminate poor people in other countries so you can be a little less poor when you finally go home. Story 100. By holes, I mean entire chunks of certain teeth are just gone now. One of my molars is literally just the back part of the tooth with a massive open cavity where the front should be. Pieces of my teeth fall out frequently despite proper brushing and flossing. Story 101. Not party too hard, friend. This mentality is toxic for people in recovery, I promise you. I lived this way for years thinking I'd partied 2 hard years of my life. But you're clean sober now, hopefully pursuing a life that you can be proud of. The reality is, whatever amount of time it took to get you there was most certainly not partied too hard, especially when the alternative is passing. Godspeed. Story 102. Similar. I stepped on a napkin in a parking lot, slipped, and absolutely destroyed my knee. 3 years later, I can walk fine, but I can't hike, can't kneel, and it's a lot weaker than my good knee. I saw the napkin. I figured who cares and didn't bother to avoid it. So many regrets. Story 103. I went to therapy for the first time with a Christian therapist, and she was so supportive of my abusive boyfriend that I internalized the message that it was all my fault that I was tragic in and abused. My last therapist was a bloody godsend, and I can't thank her more. You're right. If you get a bad one, it messes you up. Story 104. That's basically how I started. Even 11-minute stair walking caused anywhere from mild to tears down my face in pain, headaches, slow, steady walks, a year until a general practitioner gave me the green light to start hitting the gym. Another year of painstakingly slow progress later. Only regular headaches, which I can almost always wave away with a big fat smile. Story 105. A warning for me too. I miss my old best friend, but substances and mental illness has changed her so drastically that I cut off contact with her for the sake of my son, who's due in a few weeks. I can't risk it. Sometimes I have a moment of weakness and think about sending her a message. Now I'm like, nah, Story 106. Ugh, lads, I'm there too. I know it's cliche, but the power of positive thinking is just so goddamn real when it comes to this kind of thing. Even on my worst days, if I can somehow find something to be grateful for and use that to spread a little positivity to anyone else, even a random passerby or the clerk at the gas station, it's the only way I've found to truly and consistently ward off the soul-crushing anxiety, depression that comes along with being alone in the world. Story 107. When I was 10, I wore pajamas that were too long. I was born quite premature and so was always on the small side for my age growing up and was rushing downstairs to tell my mom something. I tripped on my pajama bottoms and flew headfirst into a radiator. Next thing I knew, blood was pouring out of my mouth, and I was convinced I had knocked all of my already adult teeth out because there was so much blood we couldn't tell the extent of the damage. Luckily, my teeth were mostly fine, save for a couple of chips, but the inside of my mouth was torn up like crazy and my mouth swelled to the point that I could only eat soup via a syringe. It looked like I had done the Kylie Jenner lip challenge. It could have been so much worse though. Moral of the story, wear clothes that fit you and don't run downstairs. Story 108. I did mine in a very similar way about 8 years ago. Wooden stairs, and I skipped about 6 steps before landing. Broke my tailbone and did some facet joint damage. Recently, I found something that started to help. Pilates with an instructor that's knowledgeable about back pain. Seeing some gradual improvement after 8 years of pain is enough to move a man to tears. I've found stretching to be a pretty key part of it. I hope you find something that works for you. Side note, can you also not bear watching those videos of people falling over? When I come across one of those, I can't watch it. It actually hurts. Story 109. When I was 22, Fudge Uncle Greg asked me over to move a pool table from the 1950s. I was pretty jacked, but needless to say, taking half of the pool table, Uncle Greg had 2 helpers, did something, and I herniated a disc really badly. 15 years later, I still get flare-ups. Several years ago, I found this yoga video. I don't know what stretch I do in it that makes me better, but it has seriously been miraculous for me. I've followed other videos and don't get as good of results. I should just do yoga every day and be a healthy person. But my life doesn't work like that. I do this video when I get flare-ups. Story 110. Lot of evidence suggesting progressive overload in odd, non-perfect, or symmetrical loading, bending, etc. actually creates more resilience and injury prevention long-term. Life is not symmetrically loaded. If you walk around on eggshells always worried about perfect form, you may avoid it for a while, but eventually will blow something out when you do a slightly awkward movement. Don't avoid every little thing. Lean into it. Find out the weakness and correct it smartly over time. Signed, a victim of bad L5-S1 herniation. Trampoline that caused immense pain. Did all the proper physio stuff with Fudge all to show. Embraced what I spoke about above and am once again 3 years post-injury. Deadlifting in the 400s, competing in Oli. Do anything and every physical thing my kids demand of me. Answer, I was mostly joking when I said that. The point was to protect your spine. With the strength training you describe, I think mileage per customer varies massively. Evidence specifically shows that PT improves outcomes, and what you're describing are their techniques. Management of these conditions requires multiple modalities and specialties working together to see optimal recovery. The problem is so few have access to that. It's just such a challenging medical space for patients to find any real relief. God bless the success stories, but I think they're overall the exception, not the norm. Although perhaps I'm jaded by the fact that I only see the failures, nobody is showing up to the ER to tell us how great their back feels. Story 111. I just left the ER with a sciatic pain flare-up. They gave me Toradol, a steroid shot, and Valium. I'm still in maddening pain. I was tragic and over this 10 years ago, and am now ground down to a depressed nub of flesh and bone, and considering street substances, knowing that I'll probably die from some fentanyl. Life is hard. Story 112. I spent 55 years riding and getting tossed off of horses, having horses fall on me, going headfirst through a jump, dragging me, and stepping on me. My body has paid the price, but I wouldn't have wanted to do it any differently. I guess I could have just ridden my own horses, which were wonderful, but I often took on other people's trouble horses. Story 113. I know it's a disease. I just dislike myself every day for ever doing it to myself to begin with. I have talked to her about it. No ownership whatsoever. I'm doing better now, but I suffer from severe stomach and esophageal issues because of it, and my teeth are see-through. Story 114. Hun, if you're young and poor, that's all you're going to find down in Tampa, mixed with substances too. Unless you have a plan for school or some sort of other upwards mobility, I think I'd have to advise against you moving to Tampa. I think if you need resources and help, the best state for that is going to be Massachusetts. They have a bunch of help that comes from the state. I think it's very brave of you to look at yourself and realize that you might be running from your problems. I think that's okay as long as you're running towards a solution. I just don't think Tampa is your solution. Good luck, kiddo. My heart goes out to you. Answer, I plan on transferring jobs to their Tampa location and eventually giving EMT school a shot. The plan is to move with my girlfriend, 21, whom I already live with, and her best friend, 20. All 3 split utilities and rent, and just experience something new. We live in Mississippi. Our town has 2 stop signs and a gas station. That's it. I've traveled to Florida for work and vacation, and I've just felt an overwhelming feeling of peace when I'm there. I'm just tired of living in the middle of absolute nowhere, Have to drive an hour to work. My neighbor also cooks meth in his single-wide trailer. I just want a better life. Me and my sister are the only ones in my intermediate family that have a high school diploma. I know I can make it out of here and have a better life. I'd like to move to Colorado. They're opposed to that and want to stay towards the south. I agreed with Tampa. I hope we aren't making a mistake. Story 115. Moving only moves the body and the things. The problems come with you. That's an inside thing. You got to work on yourself from the inside out. That said, if you realize this, moving could be helpful, but moving alone won't change your entire situation much. Story 116. Yes, you take yourself with you wherever you go, and new places and new people give you new experiences, new thoughts, new insights. We really are affected by our environment. Moving to something new is a good idea when the old stuff is pulling you down. Story 117. The state of Illinois has since legalized it and is doing what I was at a much larger scale. I've tried for expungement and dismissal since it's now been 19 years, no such luck. I'm glad I moved out of that miserable state, stuck with the felon status for the time being. Though with it being 19 years old, nonviolent offense, it hasn't prevented me from any jobs. It has prevented me from going on-site to military sites for my job, though. On the bright side, we both wound up engineers, LOL, Story 118. Yep, and you were always one of the first ones to congratulate them. You were always there for them whether they were dating someone and happy or whether they had lost a parent. But then suddenly they don't remember you anymore, and you end up feeling used. Story 119. Just want to add I smoked off and on for about 12 years, about a pack a day when I was smoking. It's been around 12 years since I quit, and I'm so happy I did. I don't crave cigarettes at all, actually, or even think about them. So they is hope for anyone reading who thinks they'll miss it. Story 120. I lived with an ex who routinely used our rent, bill, and grocery money to buy plant substance. And then it was a whole frantic dance every month of paying one bill late to cover another one, asking for money, figuring out what we could go without, because he absolutely had to have plant substance at all times. Otherwise, he couldn't sleep, or when he did, had intense nightmares, didn't eat, and had zero emotional regulation without it. All his friends smoked pot, and all social gatherings were centered around who had it. How much? Did someone owe someone for plant substance they fronted last time? Was someone smoking more than their share? It ruled his, and by extension, our entire lives. This doesn't even cover the dangerous situations that I got put in because he didn't drive, and he coerced me into taking him to all his pickups. I had been smoking for some time prior, nothing quite to his extent of high during all waking hours whenever possible, but living like that helped pull me out of it by watching my life deteriorate around me. But no, of course, plant substance isn't addictive. It just drives addict behavior.